hate like all of these books? I think it sounds pretentious in all the best ways. Almost a 600-page classic. So she's scary, smutty version of Pirates of the Caribbean. What's up, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Tori if you're new, and today we're gonna talk about all of my 5-star predictions. This is also my 23 books for 2023 TBR. Okay, I'll hold up what I have, but I only own 3 of these books. This is a mix of some new releases for next year, but then also some backlist books. I don't know why. I am so nervy to be like filming this video because I feel like saying something as a 5-star prediction just really attaches a very high, obviously, expectation to that book. And that makes me scared because then what if I hate like all of these books? I'm hopeful that I will do a follow-up video to this one next year, towards the end of the year, and we will see how accurate my 5-star predictions were or weren't. So the first book on this list is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is the first book in the Radiant Emperor series. All I needed to know about this book, that it was Mulan combined with Song of Achilles. Now, Song of Achilles wasn't my favorite book in the world. I gave it 3 stars. But y'all know that I love any kind of like mythological epic tale, and the romance that was in Song of Achilles, stunning. Like, everyone knows that book. It was stunning. So this is a fantasy book that centers around war and destiny. Already, like, I love that. We have our female lead in the book who has to pretend to be a male in order to survive and also to fulfill her destiny. So then we have Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angress. This is a book that was released in 2022. I do have it on the way. I've already ordered it. And this is what I would describe as a light academia book. So we all know, we're all obsessed with dark academia. Dark academia takes place in an academic setting. There's usually very dark themes within the book, and usually it has to deal with death, and then there's also an obsession going on in there. This book I want to describe as light academia because it takes place in an academic setting at a very prestigious art school in New York. Our main characters are students at this art school who kind of live in a bubble, and there is big academic rivalry. And then it's kind of talking about how they transition from this competitive bubble of an art school into the art society within New York. I think it sounds pretentious in all the best ways, and I'm hoping to read this in one of my Sad Girl Lit vlogs. I did one of those this year in 2022, and I'm hoping to continue that series on my channel in 2023. And so I feel like this book will fit that Sad Girl Lit type vibe very, very well. Another book that I am hoping to do in a Sad Girl Lit vlog is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. This was also a new release from 2022, also a contemporary fiction, and it was a Goodreads Choice Award contestant, I don't know if it's won yet, for a debut author. Our main characters kind of jumped into an impulsive marriage. We have a 24-year-old British painter, Cleo, who has escaped from England to New York a few months before her student visa ends. She meets Frank, they get married. Frank's life is full of the excesses that Cleo's lacks. He offers her a chance to be happy, the freedom to paint, and the opportunity to apply for a green card. But their impulsive marriage irreversibly changes both their lives and the lives of those close to them in ways they never could have predicted. And then it's also described perfect for fans of Sally Rooney, which I read Normal People, and I still need to read more from Sally Rooney, but it was such an interesting... Sally Rooney has such a unique way of writing, and I was intrigued after reading Normal People that I just need to experience more writing like that. I'll actually throw in the last book that I'm hoping to read in a Sad Girl Lit vlog, and that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I impulse bought this when I was at Barnes & Noble one day because I saw this cover and I was like, okay, stunning queen, I need to buy you right now. And then also look how floppy this is. It is so beautiful. It is such a beautiful floppy paperback. I need to challenge myself to read more classics, especially like this. This style of writing intimidates me more than I can say. So I've started to read a little bit of it so far. I'm only on chapter 9. This is a 600 page, almost a 600 page classic. So
she's scary.
but I'm hoping that I can really get into it, and I think that it would be a 5-star read for me if I understand it the way that I'm hoping I will and like get through it and not DNF it. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang is on this list. I know that this is gonna be a 5-star read for me. I just have not gotten around to it yet, and I don't know why. Like, I just need to get my priorities straight and read this entire series. I wanna read this entire series before I read Babel, because I just have a feeling that I'm going to love R.F. Kuang's writing. I mean, so many of my friends have absolutely loved this series, and they also tell me that since I loved An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, I'm going to love The Poppy War as well. This is an absolutely devastating like fantasy series that is a lot of like dark things happen in it, and it has a very serious and somber like mood and tone because of some of the things that take place in these books. And that being said, Babel is also on this list. I know that this is also going to be a 5-star read for me. Like, I have a really, really strong feeling that I'm just absolutely going to love it, especially because Babel explores language. Like, everyone is raving about this book right now. So, obviously Babel as well. 5-star prediction. I feel like R.F. Kuang is going to be like an auto-buy author for me. I just need to actually like read her books, you know what I mean? Next, we have Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This book was actually gifted to me by my friend Nikki. I still have your little note in here. It was gifted for me by Nikki on my birthday, which was in May, and I still haven't gotten to this book. Again, not for lack of desire to read it. I just need to get my priorities straight and finally read this book. And now that the second book in the series or duology is out, I feel like that's even more motivation for me to read this, because I know that I'm gonna be obsessed with it, and then I can just jump right into the second book. So I don't think this needs a lot of explanation. So many people absolutely love this book. It's an Arthurian retelling. I loved watching Merlin, and I know that this is an Arthurian retelling. I know that my friend Bailey was like, I didn't really have a big background of like Arthurian lore, but she was like, I watched Merlin and then I read Legendborn, and I really, really liked it because I like understood some of the references. So I feel like I hope that I have a similar experience with this book. The next couple I'm going to mention, I mentioned these in my most anticipated releases for 2023 for the first 3 months of the year. So I won't get too deep into the explanations of these because I've mentioned them before and I don't want to be super repetitive, but these are absolutely going to be 5-star predictions for me. First of all, Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. The way that Ninth House absolutely consumed my entire heart and soul when I was reading it last October, so I read that in 2021. I have been dying for the second book to come out for so long. I'm obsessed with Alex Stern. I'm also obsessed with Darlington, okay? Let's talk about the most stunning dark academia books I've ever read. Ninth House. I cannot wait. And then the other book that I mentioned in my most anticipated releases for 2023 is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree. The way that that book was a religious experience for me, A Day of Fallen Night, it's going to be a 5-star. That's like almost a guarantee. I'm not nervous about that one. Like, I would be very, very surprised if that's not a 5-star read for me. The next book on this list is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is another book that my friends have been telling me to read, like begging me to read. My friend Sarah is like, you need to read this book
or I'm gonna punch you in the face.
I'm just kidding, she didn't say that. But like, I do need to read this trilogy. I've heard such incredible things. It's kind of like, from what I understand, a like mafia or mob fantasy that takes place. Jade is this powerful, important resource in this society, and these kind of like gangsters have taken over control of this resource. It sounds incredible. Again, where are my priorities? I don't know. Have I been reading too much KU smutty books? Yes, absolutely. And I need to start diving into these incredibly life-changing, amazing fantasy books. Like, I know, okay? I know. Then we have Wicked Saints by Emily Duncan. This is the first book in the Something Dark and Holy trilogy. I feel like this book is just right up my alley. It's a gothic, dark fantasy about, I think there's 3 main characters. I'm not sure if it's multiple POV, but we have a girl who can speak to gods, must save her people without destroying herself. A prince in danger must decide who to trust, and a boy with a monstrous secret waits in the wings. Together, they must assassinate the king and stop the war. In a centuries-long war where beauty and brutality meet, their three paths intertwine in a shadowy world of spilled blood, mysterious saints, where forbidden romance threatens to tip the scales between dark and light. So, okay. Battle of good and evil. It sounds like these three are kind of the chosen ones. They're trying to stop this war in this society. All of these elements right up my alley. And so I have a feeling I'm really going to enjoy this book, but I'm also really curious to see why so many people on Goodreads rated this, like, it has an average of 3.5, which I feel like is kind of low for where my expectations are set with this book. Now, I feel like I've already addressed my new obsession with dragon fantasies, so hopefully this doesn't come as a surprise, but we have The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, John Gwynne is an author that normally I would be very, I think, intimidated by, because he is from what I understand, a very classic adult fantasy author. In my mind, I compare him to like a Brandon Sanderson type author. Brandy Sandy is really scary to me, but on another TBR list, I have a Brandy Sandy book. So overall, if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of fantasy on this list. I am really trying to get into my fantasy era in 2023.
Anyways.
Sorry, I'm getting so derailed. This is the first book in the Bloodsworn saga. I saw Jordaline from Jordaline Reads pick up this series, and she is not usually a fantasy girly. Like, she's very much a horror girly who's just starting on her fantasy journey, and I feel like that inspired me to also put this book on this list. And where I've already loved, like really fallen in love with dragon fantasies with the couple that I've read in 2022, I was like, okay, this is a challenge book. This is definitely outside of my comfort zone, but let's do it, and it's probably gonna be a 5-star. These next couple books I feel like are along similar lines, if you will, as like John Gwynne books. So then I have The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong. This is another book that is so outside of my comfort zone, but I'm willing to give it a go. I feel like if I can get into it, I feel like I'll really enjoy this book. The way that I know very little about The Sword of Kaigan, other than it's in my mind, like a very classic adult fantasy with a chosen one trope. It's about war, it's about defending their lands. That's really all I know about this book, and that's kind of all I want to know, which is weird because I'm usually someone who likes to have a fairly good understanding of a summary of a book before I jump into it, but with this one I'm kind of like, let's just leave that for later, and then when I pick it up I can try to figure out like what in the heck and bob is going on. The next one, very similar, The Mortal Blade by Christopher Mitchell. This is the first book in the Magelands Eternal Siege series, and I think that you can find this book on Kindle Unlimited. I'm gonna read you the first sentence, and that's all we're gonna say because I think you'll pick up what I'm putting down after you hear this. A city ruled by gods, a mortal champion, a misfit girl, and a disobedient dragon. Do I need to say anything else? Like, that fits so many checkboxes that have been on so many other books on this 5-star predictions list that I was like, okay, I have to add it. Then we have Flames of Chaos by Amelia Hutchins. This is the first book in a fantasy series called Legacy of the Nine Realms. This is a sensual epic fantasy set in a world of magical realms, mystical creatures, royal intrigue, and betrayal. That was like all I needed to know, y'all. That's all I needed to know. The other, I won't say like tagline, but the other element to this book when I was reading the summary that really captured me, if y'all know me, you know that I love Hecate. I absolutely love her. She is written throughout Greek mythology. She is this kind of like demon witch creature who normally in a lot of tales who kind of serves Hades. So like, I love her. Like, I literally am in love with her. In this book, we follow a family of witches that are in the Hecate bloodline. So they're very powerful witches that descend from Hecate, and I'm just like, get in my cart right now. Next is City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. This is another book that I believe you can find on Kindle Unlimited. It is and I also believe that it's a fantasy romance. At least it has some romance elements in it, but it is a high fantasy book in a world where there are vampires, witches, all of these supernatural creatures, werewolves, and there's this group called the Dark Slayers, which are supernatural bounty hunters that possess sight, a magical tracking ability that allows them to see a person's aura. And our main character is kind of being hunted by this group, but instead of capturing her, they capture her best friend. So she has to go on this mission to obviously like save her best friend, even if it means accepting the help from Darian Castle, who is the leader of the Seven Devils, the most feared dark-slaying circle in the city. Darian specializes in tracking down demons and criminals that are better off dead than alive, so when he takes a job to track down Lauren and finds out she's human, he couldn't hurt a fly if her life depended on it. I've heard this book compared to Crescent City, and that's like, again, all I needed to know. And so I am just extremely curious, especially because in the Crescent City series, House of Earth and Blood was my favorite. I really didn't love the second book in the Crescent City series, and I feel like City of Gods and Monsters is giving, at least in the summary, similar energy to House of Earth and Blood. Then we have Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. When I tell you, the only thing that I know about this book, I saw it on TikTok. It was compared to a smutty version of Pirates of the Caribbean. Absolutely yes. That's why it's on this list. Now, when I tell you that this is an author that has been getting so much hype lately, and I need to read some of her books because I know that Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader really likes these books. Cami from Burrows and Books also recommended this book to me. The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I want to read Carissa Broadbent's all of her books, but I really want to read them in publication order. So I want to start with, I think it's called The Daughter of No Worlds, and read that trilogy first. I know that Rachel from Raven-Haired Reader recently just put out her like reading vlog for those books and loved them. And then I want to read Serpent and the Wings of Night. I don't know why, but I just feel like I've heard her books get better as they go on. This book, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier. This book was also on my most anticipated releases for 2023. It's called Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. It's a cottagecore fantasy romance about a girl with powerful and violent magic that she has to learn to control or she's going to lose everything. And in order to learn how to control her magic, she has to team up with this boy, her former best friend called Xavier, who's grown from a sweet, shy child into a mysterious, distant young man. So he went from being a cinnamon roll to like kind of a fuckboy, but she has to ask for his help to control her powers because otherwise her father's life is in danger. I just feel like this is gonna be more of like a sweet, silly, goofy YA time. If it's gonna give me anything similar to like Stephanie Garber's YA fantasy vibes, I need that in my life. And I feel like this type of magic, this type of relationship between the two of them, I feel like it's just gonna be a very sweet read. And sometimes you need that. Having said that, getting back into probably the three darkest fantasy books that are on this list. We have Seven Faceless Saints by M.K. Lobb. Actually, this one I also put on my 2023 most anticipated releases. I'm so sorry. I should have been more organized. This is a book about saints and their disciples kind of like going at it with each other. And so the favored disciples of the saints really thrive, like they're gifted from the gods, but then the unfavored really suffer to survive. And there's kind of an injustice in that. And so there's kind of a rebellion that rises and is trying to change that dynamic. I go into more detail about this book in my most anticipated releases for 2023. So that will be linked in the description box below because there is a lot of overlap. Broken Bonds by Jay Bree. This is a dark fantasy romance. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited. There are 6 books in this series. After the death of my mother, and her bonded. I was relieved to find my own bonds. I was sure everything would be okay if I had them. It wasn't. The fate of our people is in my hands, and I know we're better off if I'm alone. After 5 years on the run, I'm caught and dragged back to face the men I ran away from. I thought I was going to do the right thing. Now I'm not so sure. North, Knox, Griffin, Atlas, and Gabe may never forgive me, but one thing is for sure, I won't ever forgive myself. Okay, last 2 books. This next one I was recommended because I love Greek mythology. I'm like obsessed with it. And people told me that this has very similar vibes to like a Greek mythology type tale. And that is Shadowless by Randall McNally. This book, we have this group of people, they are shadowless. That basically means that they are spawned by the malevolent deities of the world. Shadowless people are hunted by these other people called the Shadow Watchers. The Shadow Watchers are very devout to a different set of gods, and those gods tell them to hunt the shadowless people because they are spawned from dark devil gods type thing. So these shadowless people are part mortal and part god, and they have to face a battle of survival. So to me, this kind of sounds like a demigod type tale. These shadowless people remind me of like Hercules. Like he's like part god but part human, but in this society those type of people are not worshipped, they are hunted. And then the last book is the most intimidating book for me, but I think it's going to be a 5-star read. It's called Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Leatzu. He's a German self-published author, I believe. And this is a very dark adult fantasy. So our main character is not a hero. Like he has a really unsavory past. He's an ex-mercenary. He was in a war. He's kind of troubled. To me, I think of the main character in this book as similar to like a Gabe from Empire of Vampires. Like not the most likable character. He's done a lot of things in his past. But hoping to turn the page, he accepts a mysterious invitation into the beautiful but dangerous archipelago of Calais, and everything changes. Plagued by explosive social tensions and terrorism, the tropical empire is edging ever closer to civil war. Calais' merchant king is the only person able to prevent this catastrophe, but he has fallen into a preternatural, I never know how to say that word, preternatural coma, and it's Jaspar's task to figure out what or who has caused it, as the investigation takes him across the archipelago and into the king's nightmares. Unexpected events not only tie Jaspar's own life to the mystery, but also to unearth inner demons he believed to be long exorcised. Battling old trauma while fighting for his life, his sanity, and the fate of Calais, the line between dream and reality blurs until only one question remains. If your mind is the enemy, where do you run? First of all, this book is almost 900 pages. But I've heard that this book has such a deep exploration of mental health, and it's also kind of that anti-hero but chosen one trope who's trying to meet his destiny. So like overall, it sounds incredible. It's just very, very intimidating. Those are all of the 23 books on my 23 books for 2023 that I think will be 5-star predictions. Let me know if any of these books are on your TBR, or if you've read any of them, please let me know your thoughts. I'm so intrigued. I'm excited, but I'm also very scared. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, and I will see you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video, my friends.